I want to talk about a story that has been sitting in my head for a bit. There's this documentary called Kikuyu Land that just premiered at Sundance. And the reason it caught my attention is not just the film itself, it is the question underneath it: who owns the land and what happens when history never gets resolved? I've been wondering. So, I am married to a Kenyan, as I mentioned in my earlier video, and I don't have any personal stake in this. But sometimes being an outsider lets you see patterns that feel uncomfortably familiar. So, we all know Kenya is one of the biggest tea producers in the world. And there is a good chance you've had Kenyan tea recently. If you drink tea, you might not have known it, but there's a big chance. And so, what this film brings into focus is the land behind that tea, the hills, the plantations, and the history attached to them. We consume it every day. And so, a little bit of history during the British colonial rule. There's a lot of large areas of land in Kenyan highlands that were taken for cash crops, especially tea, of course. And then the entire communities, they were pushed off of that land. Their families had lived on for generations. And after independence, a little bit first for the 1960s, some of the land changed hands. But much of it stayed in the same structures, just under new management. And so today, some of these plantations are still running. Of course, they employ thousands of people. They bring in foreign money. That's a fact. And, they're a major part of the country's economy. But at the same time, there is local communities there saying that this land was never truly returned, that the original harm was never repaired, that working on the land that your family once owned for low wages doesn't feel like justice. And that makes sense. And that is also where things get very complicated because this is this is not a clean story. This is not a clean story. It is not villains on one side or heroes on the other side. No. Land, I think, is not just a property. It is identity, it is memory, and it doesn't stop hurting just because time passed. That is the reality. But then at the same time, you know, okay, tearing everything down, that's hard to real people too. So jobs will disappear, livelihood will vanish, and entire region will destabilize. So the question becomes, okay, how do you address historical injustice without creating new damage? That's another question I was wondering. But what makes Kikuyu land a very interesting is that the filmmaker who made it approached this as a journalist first. She did her investigation. She was going through the ongoing land dispute. She was talking to different workers. She talked to different activists and people who were afraid to go on a record. And along the way, the story turned inwards. The family history started to intersect with the reporting. And so, and I think that shift is powerful because think about it, it's going to mirror how history actually works. Sometimes you don't have to study history from a distance. Sometimes, or in most cases, will bump into your own life and your own family and your own sense of self. And this is what happened. And so, and I think that's why history, this definitely travels beyond Kenya. We know land dispute like this, they exist everywhere. You can do your research, different countries, different timelines, and the same questions. Who benefited? Who paid the price? And why so many people, still allowing these, rewarding these systems instead of them repairing them? And so I kept thinking about how much of the world we've actually moved through without knowing what came before us, what was taken, who was displaced, the damage, what never got fixed. This was super interesting. And this is the kind of the story, it doesn't even give you neat answers. It just forces you to sit with discomfort. But honestly, I think we need more of that. So, if you've heard about this film, Kikuyu Land, or if there's some land issues in your own country that come to mind, I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts. I want you to, drop those comments and tell me what it reminds you of. But also, yeah, just know that these are the kind of conversations I want to be having here. They're not hot takes, just real stories, just real conversation. So, if that's your thing, please hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.